So today we're going to be talking about outsilencing the narcissist. If you love this content, please don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell. This way, every time I upload a new video, you'll be the first to know. So we're going to be talking about how to outsilence a narcissist. And what does that mean exactly? I think what we have to do is we have to take a moment and recognize that just because we know someone who is a little cocky, you might know someone else who can be selfish. You might notice someone else who really isn't always there for you. That doesn't necessarily mean that these people are narcissists. When we're talking about narcissists, we're talking about pervasive patterns, because I think that it's really easy to have an argument with someone, break up with someone, and just say, oh, they're just a narcissist. But I think we have to be really careful about this, because this gives other people the same right to call you or me a narcissist for the same reasons. So we didn't agree with them, so we're a narcissist. Or we didn't anticipate their needs, so we're a narcissist. We didn't do exactly what they told us to do, so we're a narcissist. And so I think it's really, really wise of us to make sure that if we're going to use the word narcissist, and we are here learning about narcissism, that we make sure that we're in check with our emotions and that we're just not labeling everybody a narcissist. Although I do think it's fair to say that if you spend any significant amount of time studying this field, you're going to start picking up on narcissistic traits in yourself and even in other people. But that doesn't mean you're a narcissist. That doesn't mean that you have NPD, right? But I do think it's important that if we are here, we make sure that we're looking for patterns of behavior. So this is the classic 3 E's of narcissism, the lack of empathy, right? So people are empathy impaired. So these are people who don't naturally, and it doesn't come automatic to them, to slip into the skin or the shoes of other people. They have to be shown that, hey, where's your empathy for this person? Or why is everything about you? And I'm not talking about people on the autism spectrum. I'm talking about people who really have high levels of narcissism, who generally tend to make almost everything about them, and who you can sense over time that there is a genuine lack of empathy for other people. Then there's this sense of entitlement. Generally, people who score high on the narcissistic spectrum has a sense of entitlement. In other words, people owe them things, right? So if a narcissist or someone who has high narcissistic traits asks you something, and there's a 50% chance that you're going to say no, they're expecting you to say yes. And if you say no, they will punish you for saying no. So there's this sense of vindictiveness, or they cut you out of their life really quick. So you don't respond to someone who has high narcissistic traits the way they think you should, and there's a price to pay. That's entitlement. If you ask me something, honestly, and I say no, and you don't accept it, then you expect a different answer. So you feel entitled then for me to do things your way. And so I'm not a 3D autonomous human being then. I'm basically a reactor. So you say something and I'm supposed to just react the way you want me to, right? So that's something to look out for. People who have this sense of importance, or this grandiose sense of self, grandiose sense of importance, this need for excessive admiration and validation, these are people who generally have a pervasive pattern of entitlement. So they're the people who you'll notice at a grocery store making a big scene. Or they're the people who walk into a restaurant and they're 15 minutes late and they think that the restaurant owner should never have offered the best seat in the house to a couple that had been waiting 20 minutes. So there's a lack of personal accountability, which I think goes hand in hand with entitlement. Another thing that we'll notice is between the lack of empathy, the sense of entitlement, there's this sense that the person that you're dealing with really is emotionally exploitative. They will exploit your emotions. The telltale sign, one of the telltale signs of narcissism, or if you want to know if someone has high narcissistic traits, It will be when you reveal something to them that's quite private and they make fun of you for it. Or during an argument, they take out this wound that you shared with them and they bring it up. So I always use this analogy where if you want to rob the bank, burn down Dunkin' Donuts, because now the police and the firemen are all, or fire people are all at Dunkin' Donuts, and first responders are not going to, they're going to be so involved with putting out the fire that we're not looking at the real problem. So a narcissist will exploit you emotionally when they think they're losing an argument or they feel like they're losing control over you. So they'll do this to really throw you off balance, to make you experience like self-doubt, and to really bring into question even your own sanity. So we're looking for patterns, and I think that's the easiest, the 3 E's are the easiest way to spot a narcissist or spot someone who you think might have high narcissistic traits. So it's the lack of empathy, the entitlement, and they exploit you emotionally. They'll exploit you, period. They'll exploit you financially, they'll exploit you sexually. At the end of the day, whether it's financial exploitation, psychological exploitation, sexual exploitation, you will feel emotionally exploited. Like you as a 3D person just really are irrelevant in the mind of a narcissist. So it's really important to think about. Now, when we're talking about outsilencing a narcissist, this is basically the scenario. A narcissist is upset with you and they curse you out, let's say, and they don't want to talk to you and they ghost you for a little while. And when you do see them again, they are just giving you the silent treatment, right? So this is a form of punishment. You said something that someone with high narcissistic traits didn't like, and in their minds, you had no right to your feelings. Even if you tried to have an open dialogue with them that you considered fair, they will punish you by just giving you the silent treatment. I remember when my ex-husband and I think we were going through the separation process. We were actually separated and had agreed to get a divorce. And during the process, it's just messy. You know that. If you've ever been through a divorce, it's just such a horrible experience. It's just terrible, especially if you have children involved. And I remember that there was one point when we took the kids out to an Applebee's. And I started to notice that because we were trying to get along for the sake of the children, it's just you're trying to figure out how are we going to be like in the next phase of this life that we're having after the divorce. And I just remember spending time with him at various points. And whenever I was with him, not whenever, but most times I was with him, I was dealing with either passive aggressiveness, stonewalling, or complete silent treatment, or worse. And I remember this one time in particular where we were at Applebee's and I could actually feel him just deliberately ignoring me, only talking to the children, only talking to the waitress, refusing to acknowledge anything that I said. And it was finally clicking in my head like, I can't communicate with this person. Here we are trying to do something wonderful for the kids, at least we thought so. And he's punishing me. The babies are seeing what daddy's doing. They knew what he was doing. And I just took out one of the crayons I wrote on the napkin, I deserve better. Because I was finally recognizing the tactic, the exploitation. And it was only when I really started to study codependency, manipulative personalities, passive aggressiveness, and eventually narcissism, that these labels began to make sense to me. I began to see a pattern in myself and in my relationship I did not see it before. When you're lost inside a corn maze, you don't know that it's a maze. You can't see the maze, right? You don't have that perspective. You're in it. When you are lost in the woods, you have no idea. The woods could only be a half-mile radius all the way around. But when you're lost in the middle of the woods, it feels like you are going to be lost forever because you don't have perspective. You're too busy. Your amygdala is on fire. Patterns of fear are coming to the surface. You're in survival, right? You don't have the perspective you need to understand the big picture. When you are struggling with high levels of codependency or high symptoms of codependency, you are basically struggling with an identity issue, which is a lack of self. And in addition to that, you are dealing with the subconscious mind. We're all on autopilot. It just is what it is. I know it's mind-boggling. It sounds hippy-dippy, but it is what it is. So you're dealing with this programming, subconscious mind. You're dealing with the past. You're dealing with fear in the moment. You don't know what you're dealing with. And so when a narcissist starts to use the silent treatment on you, if you're struggling with codependency and you have a loss of self and you have a behavioral issue in that the way you relate to people, you fawn, you people please, you enable, you rescue, you fix, and you get a sense of enoughness or a sense of self through taking care of other people, you are going to be extremely off balance when a friend who has high narcissistic traits, a boss, a lover, your mother, your father, your children, when they start shutting you out and they start giving you the silent treatment, you might struggle. As a matter of fact, you definitely will struggle if your identity at all, or your false identity, is tied to codependency, is tied to I'm enough if I can figure out what you need. I'm enough if I can satisfy some need that you have. I'm enough if you see value in me. When you're codependent, you feel like love is something that you have to earn. You have to work for it. You are not worthy as you are. And so below the veil of consciousness, as I like to say, you are constantly efforting and trying to prove that you are worthy of love. You're trying to prove that you have a right to be. You're trying to prove, it's so awful. You're trying to prove that you have a right to your opinion. You have a right to your feelings. You have a right to your lifestyle. There's this efforting. I've got to prove it. And there's life of enduring, right? And we don't see that that's happening. We don't know that it's happening. And so yes, when a narcissist ghosts us or a narcissist gives us a silent treatment, it's going to be very, very overwhelming for us who lack an identity and who show up in relationships as codependent, who don't feel good enough, and who think that we need to prove ourselves to other people and we need to have the other person's approval, i.e. their love and their attachment, in order to survive, in order to breathe. And so codependency will show up in our relationships. So when we are dealing with someone who has high narcissistic traits and they have a pervasive pattern of high narcissistic traits, and they use this mind game on us, one of the things that you can start doing is try to outsilence them. What I try to do with my coaching clients is I try to teach them how to detach. So when you emotionally detach from the game, right? When you emotionally detach from the narcissist, when you emotionally detach from the pain from within, when you learn to validate how you feel, right? So from a higher state of awareness, you're now able to observe these emotions and this fear kicking in, but you're not reacting to them. There are plenty of videos out there, I've actually done a few myself, about react, don't respond, don't react. Makes sense. But we have to have the same modality within. So we respond, we don't react. We respond to what? How we feel. We don't react. So we all understand that in the 3D world, the goal is to not react to a narcissist. The goal is to respond. Well, we have to hold the same modality for ourselves. And this is the path to enlightenment. The path to enlightenment is escaping the world of duality. Narcissists live in the world of duality. They split. Black and white thinking. Everything is either up, down, left, right, black, or white. So you are either all good in their head or you are all bad, right? So there's no middle ground, right? So a narcissist isn't able to see you as someone who is imperfect and worthy of empathy anyway. In a narcissist's mind, if you disappoint them, if you don't live up to their expectation, if you are not the person that anticipates their needs, If you are not highly attuned to their needs, right? When you're a narcissist, it's all about my boo-boos, right? You don't have any boo-boos, or your boo-boos are insignificant compared to my boo-boos, right? My boo-boos are the worst boo-boos in the world, right? And so when you're dealing with someone who has high narcissistic traits and you try to tell them, like, I recognize that this bothered you, but when you speak to me in this language, it's also a trigger for me too. Well, you made me speak to you that way. Well, you triggered me first, right? The trigger could be as simple as not responding to a text message, within the first 13 seconds of a narcissist sending you the text message. Or maybe you were asleep when they sent you a text message and you respond in the morning. But with a narcissist, they're usually very untrustworthy people. And so they'll create a narrative in their head about why you didn't call them. Maybe in their head you did it on purpose, right? And so when you don't respond to the narcissist or even react to the narcissist the way they expect you to, and remember, narcissism is like this tragic play, right? A narcissist needs someone to counter. They need a partner. And they live in this drama, and you become an actor in their play. So when you first meet them, they idealize you, not for you, dear one. They idealize you for them. So they can think that it's great that they're talking to you, that they have you in their life. You elevate their status, perhaps, right? So in the beginning, you'll be love bombed, you'll be idealized. And in time, because narcissists tend to get very bored, they will start to devalue you, discard you. They will start putting you down with insults. They will start gaslighting you. And here we have a trauma bond. You're not going to know if you're coming or going. Narcissists will pick fights with you, blame you for things, and you will really wonder whether or not you are losing your mind, because so much of it doesn't make sense. You catch them red-handed, hand in the cookie jar, and somehow they find a way to blame shift and to create a story about how your perceptions are. If it really wasn't your hand, maybe you're just remembering last week when you saw me with my hand in the cookie jar. It wasn't this week. And so you have to really, really be careful in this arena when you're dealing with someone who has high narcissistic traits, because their goal really is to mess with your mind. And so how do you out-silence a narcissist? So I made some notes and I want to share them with you. So a narcissist will expect you to break the silence first. So classically, you tick a narcissist off. It could be absolutely anything. There could be an upcoming party and the narcissist is really not handling the stress of the party, and the narcissist is picking a fight with you because they have all this stress and they have to get it out, and they accuse you of things that you're not guilty of, and boom, right? They have some thought in their head about who you are. They create the story, the backstory to justify their anger and their rage, unaware, don't care that they are carrying this anger and this unresolved rage. And now they've just found you're a target, and now they're outputting this rage onto you. And now they feel completely justified. They want to punish you now because that helps them feel a little bit more in control over their stress level. And so to emotionally regulate themselves, now they're targeting you, they're punishing you. This story makes sense to them in their head. They're raging at you. And you're standing like you don't know what to do next. And boom, they just stop talking to you. Classically, in a narcissist's head, they're punishing you. In a narcissist's head, you're suffering. That gives them a sense of power and control. And you have to use that to your advantage, because when you notice, again, we're looking for a pattern, right? This is not true if you have two people who had a heated argument and now the one person, you know what, I just can't talk about this anymore. We're not going anywhere. I need space. And they actually ask for space. And they just don't want you to talk to them for a few days. They want you to leave them alone. They want you to just let them process it, right? But this is someone who, this is not their MO, right? This is someone that you've been able to resolve issues with in the past, right? in this situation, if you suddenly have a heated debate or a heated argument and your friend taps out and says, I need a couple of days to cool off, that doesn't make them a narcissist. So remember, we're looking for a pattern of punishing people, right? PPP, a pattern of punishing people. That's what a narcissist does. So the narcissist needs someone to punish. Why? So that they can maintain dominance and control. That helps them emotionally regulate. Why? Because they live in the world of the ego. They live in the world of duality. Once you understand spirituality and non-duality, then you know that there has to be an ego death. I've done a number of videos on this, and I've done a number of podcasts on this if you want to learn more about this idea of a narcissist being absolutely in love with their ego or the reflection of their ego and believing in it, right? And building themselves up in their head, most often fabricating, thinking that they're far more intelligent, far more beautiful, far more competent than they actually are. In some cases, you're dealing with an absolutely brilliant narcissist who actually has proven himself or herself. But in lots of the cases, you're dealing with a narcissist who really isn't all that, but they think that they are. But this story in their head helps them feel good about themselves because they have to see themselves as better than you. And they need to believe that you believe they're better than you. Again, it's a really sick way to live your life, because how do you have empathic relationships with other people if this is you need to believe this in order to regulate yourself emotionally? You can't. How do you build trust? How do you build intimacy, right? If you're dealing with someone who has high levels of narcissism, you can't, right? But I do think it's a worthy conversation to have. It's worthy information to have in your back pocket. So number one, so that you can ask yourself, like, am I coming off this way because I don't want to? And if I am, how can I help myself not be this way, right? And if you are someone who keeps manifesting people who stonewall you, who give you the silent treatment, then you recognize what the red flags are so that you can avoid it in the future. One of my sayings is namaste and walk away, right? You don't have to poke someone in the eye, say, hey, Mr. Narcissist, I know you're a narcissist. That's just silly. You know, it's sort of like a skunk. When you're walking along a trail and you see a skunk, you don't kick it and say, hey, Mr. Skunk, you stink, right? I know you're a skunk. No, what do? You avoid the skunk, right? So we have to make sure that we keep our ego in check, because oftentimes a natural ego defense is to push people back, is to say, hey, I know who you are, I know what you are. But in the world of energy, that just doesn't make sense, because what you focus on, you're bringing into your reality. That which you surrender to and you have no resistance to will skedaddle, just like the skunk in the forest. So that's the goal. So when you're out silencing a narcissist, we're understanding on a conscious, rational level that this is a tactic, that we are now being very tactful and strategic about our next move. Now, if you are struggling with high codependency traits, if you have attachment issues, right? You have a poor attachment to your mom, poor attachment to dad, your caretakers, and you have this insecure attachment style. When someone gives you the silent treatment, it's really going to rock your world. And you must hold on to yourself when this starts to happen. And so when you're outsmarting a narcissist, right, or outsilencing a narcissist, one of my best narcissist repellents is shutty shutty. So shutty shutty is a little bit different than gray rock. So gray rock is basically when you acknowledge that someone's a narcissist, you become very dull and you become almost emotionless, right, or numb around the narcissist. And that's wonderful. I've done it myself, and it's an amazing tool. Shutty shutty is the term I use to help people understand that when you know that you're dealing with a narcissist, don't give them any information, right? When you are around a narcissistic mother, don't go at her. Don't, I know you're a narcissist, or why did you say that? You have a narcissistic sister, right? Don't antagonize her, right? Even though it's so difficult and it's going to be really, really hard, right? You're being threatened to be cut out of the will. You know, you've been the scapegoated child, huge in a narcissistic family. The whole setup, the narcissistic mother creates a scapegoat and honors the golden child, pits the children against one another. It's classic dysfunctional narcissism inside a family unit. But shati is, you are at the dinner table and you know that you have people at the table that want to poke you. You don't make eye contact. You say nothing. You don't contribute anything to the conversation. You're dealing with a narcissist. You have to co-parent with a narcissist. You say nothing to this person. You give them absolutely nothing. So you are out-silencing the narcissist when you go shati. This works like a charm with certain narcissists. Now, there's no such thing as one size fits all when it comes to recovery, codependency recovery, attachment style recovery. There's no such thing. So you have to use a little bit of common sense here. Now, if you know that you're dealing with a violent, malevolent, malignant narcissist who is like a psychopath, is very sensitive to every move you make, as are most narcissists. They're very hypervigilant. But when it comes to like a psychopath, you don't want to do anything to set a psychopath off, right? You don't lie to a psychopath. If you're afraid, you say, yes, I'm afraid. If you're hungry, you say, yes, I'm hungry. You never lie to a psychopath. It's going to set them off. So it's important that you recognize, what kind of personality am I dealing with here? If you're dealing with a narcissistic mom, non-violent mom, you're not dependent upon mom, and she likes to needle you a little bit, she's causing issues in your marriage or whatever, asks you questions about your kids so she can use those questions against you or the answers against you, wants to know about your personal life so that she can talk about you behind your back and criticize you. Shati is an amazing tool. Say absolutely nothing. Offer them absolutely no conversation. So that's one way that you can out-silence a narcissist. So the other way that you can silence a narcissist is remember to be non-reactive. It goes along with shati, it goes along with gray rock. But when you are dealing with a narcissist, the tactic is for you, and you have to see it as a tactic, as a strategy step. So I am around a narcissist, and it's like being around a skunk. And if you react, the skunk is going to spray you. If you don't react, there's no spray, right? It's sort of like when they say don't run from a bear, just play dead, right? It's the same thing. Non-responsiveness. You don't want to have any reaction to the narcissist giving you the silent treatment. So if they're walking around the house and they're giving you the silent treatment, you just busy yourself with something else. So you are learning to emotionally regulate. You are learning to trump the trigger. You are learning to override the amygdala. You are learning to override pain versus pleasure because you have pain associated to the silent treatment. If you follow the loop, why do you have pain associated to the silent treatment if you're a codependent? Because if this person that you have made the boss over you, you have put them in front of you, right? You have said your agreement to the universe, your commandment to the universe is, I'm not good enough, and I need this person to show me that I am. And the relationship, the agreement is, I'll just work my butt off, and if I do enough, or maybe if I figure him out or figure her out, they'll change. So that's the agreement you've set up. That's the matrix that's inside your head. The matrix is not outside any of us. The matrix is always inside our head. So we have to get the matrix clear so that the outer world will clear. It's just like looking into a mirror, right? So you're looking into a mirror. Do you expect the reflection to change? No. You know that if you want the reflection to change, you have to change your facial expressions. That's when the matrix changes. That's when the mirror changes. That's when the reflection changes, right? And so we have to recognize that if someone's using the silent treatment on us, we have to be strategic about not being the one to break the silence first. Some would say, oh, you're just playing a game. And I say, no, I'm not playing a game. I'm being strategic, right? I'm learning to honor myself. I don't want to have to engage with someone who is highly narcissistic, who punishes me because I don't agree with them, or who doesn't see me as an autonomous 3D human being, who is going to go on Twitter and label me and say things, or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, write a blog about me. I'm not a 3D autonomous human being to you. So no, I'm not really playing a game. I'm being strategic in that if this is who you are, I've got to push you out of my boundary circle. And so no, I'm not creating this pattern of you stop talking to me and now I'm going to chase after you for your approval. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not 4 years old. And parents do this all the time. They stop talking to their kids, right? They ignore their children. And what are they doing? They're withholding their love. My parents did this all the time. Both of them, not one, both of them. If you didn't agree with my mom, after she raged at you, she stopped talking to you. And it was days before she looked you in the face again. And sometimes she didn't. Sometimes she just kind of referred to you. My dad was the same way, except he was a little bit more overt about it because he was the only person in the house that was allowed to get angry. But certainly, if you come from that type of dynamic, as an adult, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you could be a head of state. You can run a Fortune 500 company, right? You can have 10,000 employees and go home and have someone give you the silent treatment. And you could feel like you're 4 years old again. That's like unnecessary. So when we are met with the silent treatment by anyone, and again, I'm not talking about the person you've just had a blow up and the person says, you know what, I need some time away from you. And that's it, it's over. And they actually ask for space. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the person that you've deemed has high narcissistic traits. They stop talking to you because you just had a minor disagreement and this is his or her pattern. So you want to make sure that you are using the gray rock, you're going another level, and you're shutty. So you're at a family dinner and someone's ignoring you. Give them no attention. They are hoping that you're going to have a reaction. Don't, hey, do you see me? Hey, I know you're ignoring me. Hey, oh, so-and-so's ticked off at me because of an argument. No, don't do that. Ignore them right back. Have a grand old time. Don't let them think that it bothers you, and do what you can to not let it bother you. This is a very immature way of relating to people. It's highly toxic and unnecessary. And we cannot grow and evolve as people if we keep tangoing with people that behave this way. So that's a couple of ways that you can outsilence a narcissist. Another thing that I would like people to consider is ground yourself. It can be very destabilizing. I know it was in my life. When my parents stopped talking to me, we had an argument. I was thrown out of the house essentially, and it was about a year before we started talking again. I can tell you that that was a very topsy-turvy year in my life. And I needed to ground myself. That's why if you listen to my podcast, you listen to YouTube, you take my classes, you hear me talk about meditation a lot. It saved my mind. I was able to ground myself, and in the grounding, I was able to see when my mind was slipping down a rabbit hole of reactivity, of resistance. I could actually see when my mind was becoming codependent. I could feel the anxiety mounting, and I was learning to observe it rather than react to it, or respond to it rather than react to it, like I spoke about earlier. And it literally was an amazing time, because that is when I was learning to master my mind, right? And it's so incredible. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, you can master your mind, but it takes practice. This doesn't happen because you watch a YouTube video. This doesn't happen because you go to therapy for 6 weeks. This doesn't happen because you read 4 or 5 books on the subject matter. No, it happens in the stillness. It happens when you go within. When you become silent and you go within and you say, oh, I see that, now I can change it, right? So it's really important that you ground yourself. So someone's trying to upset you by giving you the silent treatment, ground yourself. And whenever you think about this person, remember to ground yourself mentally right where you are. So they come into your mind and you immediately orient yourself to, time and space. So it's whatever. It's July 2nd. It's 6:30 in the evening. This is my name. This is what happened today. These are the things that I accomplished today. So it's like you're grounding yourself to the here and the now. Very, very important, because this is going to push your fear of the narcissist out and away from you. So when you're out silencing a narcissist, you have to remember that they're going to take you not fawning after them as a personal attack. They're going to take it personally that you're not chasing them. And so you have to be prepared for whatever response they might give you. And you also have to be prepared to know like what you're going to tolerate. In most cases, not in all cases, right? Nothing is black and white. There's always the gray. There's always the middle path. So in some cases, you're going to have narcissistic people who have high narcissistic traits, react very, very poorly when you refuse to chase them. And so you have to be prepared for that, right? And I would say that the less energy you give someone with high narcissistic traits, the better. You know, these are just people that want a reaction from you. And me personally, I think we have to question anyone who is so vindictive that their agenda is to cause harm to another human being, right? You know, in the best case scenario, you have a falling out and people go their separate ways, but there's no, I want to hurt you. There's no vindictiveness. It's just, okay, it didn't work out or whatever. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, what happens is the smear campaign, the triangulation, the lies, the projection, you know, you've triggered their narcissistic injury. How dare you not consider them supreme? How dare you not give them all of your attention or all of your time or all of your money? How dare you disagree with the narcissist in their perspective? And so I think it's important that if you decide to out-silence a narcissist, that you be prepared for what might happen. But I also think it's important that we pay attention to the whole process. What is the goal, right? Every day I wake up and I know my goal is peace. My goal is equanimity. So what does that mean? I'm not going to sleep with a rattlesnake. I'm not going to poke a rattlesnake. I'm not going to dig up an old rattlesnake. I'm not going to hang out with rattlesnakes. I'm not going to try to change a rattlesnake. Even if I played with the rattlesnake and I didn't know it was a rattlesnake and it never bit me. But once I know it's a rattlesnake, namaste, and I walk away. I wish you peace. I really do. I wish you peace, no matter who you are. And so because I know what the goal is, the goal for me is peace, during the day, when I'm making day-to-day decisions, I absolutely know that the goal is to not bump up against abrasive people, to not have issues with abrasive people, to really figure out how can I live in equanimity regardless of what's happening outside of me. A narcissist can't survive without drama. The narcissist has to make other people their targets, the sources of narcissistic supply. They have to love bomb you, they have to discard you, they have to devalue you, and they have to rinse, recycle, repeat. And so when you are out silencing a narcissist, remember the goal really is to break your own pattern of codependency perhaps, face your own fear of being triggered, because remember when you out silence a narcissist, what you're confronting is your own fear of abandonment. What you're confronting is your identity issue or your lack of identity. Like, I am no one unless I'm taking care of other people and seeking approval. And so you're facing all of that, right? So you want to ground yourself. And one of the most powerful things that you can do is create a mantra. And one of my favorite mantras is, infinite intelligence is flowing to and through me now like a golden river. Infinite intelligence is flowing to me and through me now like a golden river. Infinite intelligence is basically source, and you are an extension of source. Like it or not, you are. We don't have to call this extension God. We don't have to call it anything spiritual, if you will. We don't have to give it a name. But when we say infinite intelligence, we're acknowledging that our bodies are divine, that in every cell of our being, there is divinity. And our infinite intelligence knows how to take care of us and knows that we're enough. And so handing over our fear to infinite intelligence, right, really can empower us day to day when we are dealing with someone who we have deemed has high narcissistic traits, and we just don't want to play this silent game anymore. Remember, if you chase after someone who gives you the silent treatment, you're actually playing into their hands. You're teaching them, right? They're training you to be afraid of the silent treatment and to behave and to acquiesce and to back down. I've seen this played out so many times in my life, far more times than I would like to even remember. With my children and people they were married to, with people that I know personally, where one of the partners was more narcissistic than the other, and the more codependent partner did not anticipate the needs of the more narcissistic partner, and the narcissistic partner just punishes the more codependent partner and just gives them the silent treatment, doesn't talk to them for days. And before long, the more codependent partner is like crying uncle, begging for approvals. Can we please talk? I can't stand not talking to you. And all that does is teach someone with high narcissistic traits that all they have to do is threaten you with abandonment, and you become putty in their hands. And so this reinforces a very toxic dynamic. So I really hope that this has been beneficial. I hope that it has helped you understand the power of outsilencing a narcissist, because that's really how you find your own personal power. And that's one of the ways that you can break the fawn response to someone who is highly narcissistic, who is using the silent treatment. If you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.